Welcome to the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions, now in its 24th season. Our panel features a longtime Penn State media and NitWits tag team, Neil Rudell of the Altoona-Mirror and Mark Brennan of Lions 24/7 with Fight on State. Between them, they've covered Penn State for more than 75 years. The NitWits are hosted by WTAJ's Anderly Penwell, and each week we welcome a former Nittany Lion as our special guest analyst. The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solani Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you. By NovaCare, Altoona and State College, we proudly support Penn State football. By Quattrini Rafferty, attorneys at law, Michael Rooch, peace of mind after an injury or illness. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona-Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
Welcome to Nittany Nation Overtime.
Welcome to Nittany Nation Overtime. Thanks so much for joining us. We are the NitWits. Of course, I'm Anderly Penwell, Mark Brennan, Neil Riddell, and our special guest, Wally Richardson. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
So a tough loss yesterday on Saturday to Michigan, 21-17 at home. Should we just open it up? What are your guys' thoughts generally with the loss?
Well, there's a mime out there, or a meme, with Vince Lombardi where he says, "What the hell's going on out there?" And that's how I felt during this game, and they faked the field goal. I mean, the fake punt to me was timely, and it worked. But the fake field goal in that situation, and the way they did it.
Yeah, I mean, here's the video of it. Here's the bad pitch, and then just one bad thing after another, and then we're going to get the reverse angle from the broadcast feed in just a second here after they just are standing over his body there, basically. This one's really good. I like it because you can see how bad the pitch was to Stout. Like, he had zero chance of doing anything that.
Yeah, but I mean, you're right. You're talking about a holder from a kneeling position to your place kicker who's really been one of your MVPs. I mean, put these kids in a position to succeed. Either go for it on 4th and 2 or kick the field goal. You're still in control kind of the game. It just really was maddening to me.
Neil doesn't want to address big picture. I was sitting next to him in the press box, ladies and gentlemen, and I can tell you the reaction was even more visceral. He was angry at the time.
Well, yeah, I think most of the people.
What was his?
I was laughing
trying to calm me down.
As much as I want to disagree with Neil, I can't, because for once he's absolutely right. I loved the fake punt, hated the fake field goal. Now people could say, well, you can't have it both ways, but I think you can, because to me the fake punt was in a very different spot. Number one on the field, and number two down in distance. The fake field goal was 4th and short. And I think if you make the decision there, you just make the decision to go for it. I think everybody would have been fine with that. The other thing that you didn't bring up, Neil, is that the holder there is Cheka, another kicker. So you have, with the fake punt, you have Stout throwing it to Jacobs, who was a high school receiver. With the fake field goal, you have Cheka, who's a kicker, who was holding at the time, pitching it to another specialist. It just made no sense. And if you look at it, Stout said after the game that they practiced that maybe 3 times a week, that there was not a pass involved. Right. If you look at that, when Anderly showed the view from behind, there was no way that was working even with a good pitch. So I just think sometimes the staff they try to get too cute when they don't need to. It's a head scratcher, and as much as I love to disagree with Neil, can't do it this time.
Yeah, I thought I would have liked to have seen us kick the field goal at that point. It was 3-0 ball game our way. You go up. You hate to kick field goals, but you get the points on the board, and it would have made a difference for us because that kind of took some of the juice out of the crowd early and it's early in the game. It's not like you had to have that right then. So I definitely would like to have seen us kick the field goal at that point.
Plus, you knew points were going to be at a minimum. And, you say you hate to disagree with me. You agreed with me last week about the timeouts. I mean, there's something almost every week that's coming up during the games, just for the record.
Well, if you had to sit next to him and have him griping all game, you know why I want to
you're sitting
disagree
in a
with him.
mask.
For the record, I was sitting behind both of you for a bit, and you were having a great bromance there.
Yeah, we do. But hey, and the other thing that I thought, you're at home. It's not like you're putting a game away with a fake field goal in that situation. I mean, you're building momentum. You got your crowd, alive. And what struck me is they ran 37 of the game's first 43 plays, and that speaks to their dysfunction in the red zone.
Yeah, well, it was also another game where they basically dominated, as you allude to, Neil, the first quarter, and basically have nothing to show for it afterward. And that's been a pattern for them this season, where they've played really well for stretches, but they can't put the ball in the end zone, or they can't even get the points that Wally was talking about. And sooner or later, we can talk about Penn State should have done this, should have done that, could have beaten this team. Sooner or later, you are what your record says you are. And that's what this team is. It's a 6-4 team that has now lost four of its last 5 games and is struggling toward the end of the season.
Wally, as a player, what sort of momentum shift do you think the faked field goal, or following the fake punt, and then immediately turning around and having the field goal thing, what is that momentum shift like?
Well, I think it's a big momentum shift. Everybody's excited because the fake punt was executed very well. Jacobs made a great catch, and then you go out there and you try to do the same thing. Everybody's excited, but when it doesn't work, it kind of deflates the whole situation, and the guys, it's an uphill battle from there. They're getting the ball, closer to our side of the 50, good field position, and get a chance to make a drive. So it's tough, but like I said, early in the game, I think you kick the field goal there, and then you just battle it out. It was a hotly contested game. They made a few more plays than we did, but I think our guys are in a position to make some plays, and when the plays are there to be made, they've got to make them. And that's what we have not done consistently throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, there was one play, Wally, because you said that, to transition. Over on defense, early in the second quarter, Michigan has a 3rd and 13 or 15 or whatever it was, and they dumped the ball to the running back, and Brandon Smith, your 5-star recruit, does not wrap the guy up. He basically hits him and pushes him toward the first down. Penn State was cruising statistically at that point, not score-wise, but after that pickup, Michigan marches right down the field and scores. I thought that was a huge momentum changer. And while he speaks to what you say, there's a handful of guys on this team who are making clutch plays. But you need your starting linebacker, who's now approaching his 2nd year as a starter, to make a simple, it's not a simple tackle, I don't want to say that, but to make a tackle that he is talented enough to make.
You're a 5-star. Those are the things you need to be.
Yeah, so I mean, for an average person, I'm not suggesting anything out there is easy. It's very hard, and these are very high-level talented athletes. But when you're there, you need to make that play.
He's our 5-star. But one of the things that it bothered me is, I think it was an admission with some of this trickeration that they were trying, that they're not as good as Michigan, and I disagree with that. I think they hung right in there physically. Now you're trying these little pranks. You do that when you're, now dare I say, Rutgers or Vanderbilt, when you're much more of a decided underdog. I think it shows they have no confidence in their offensive line, and their offensive line has given reason not to have a lot of confidence. But at the same time, in the second half, the offensive line started to play a little better, at least against running the ball.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think when you say it shows you don't have confidence, I think what it showed is that they don't have confidence in the offensive line specifically. I think they have confidence in a lot of other areas of the team, but when you're pulling that kind of stunt, as you said, Neil, on 4th and 2, and we've seen it the last couple of weeks. I mean, on the 4th and 2 the previous week when they attempted to, with Tyler Warren, like faking the handoff to Dotson rather than just having Warren bang it up in there. I mean, just maybe if they showed some confidence in these situations, the offensive line would gain some confidence.
I agree with that.
Respond better.
Okay. And when we come back after a quick break, we'll continue our conversation with Michigan and big picture, what does this mean for the Nittany Lions?
The NitWits are being brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Salaney Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Hi, and welcome back to Nittany Nation Overtime. So, guys, let's continue our conversation about yesterday's game against Michigan. Sean Clifford, he finished 23 of 43, 205 yards, a touchdown, 16 rush yards, and sacked 7 times. Banged up Wally. What's his mindset right now, and how do you think he's physically feeling?
Well, I think his body's probably pretty sore.
Yeah.
He took probably 3 really good shots yesterday, so I know that weighs on it. And as a quarterback, you try to put your team in the best position. I think he made a lot of good decisions yesterday, but when things aren't consistent, the protection breaks down every once in a while. You're trying to figure things out, but it was a tough day. I think he was pretty consistent, got the ball in a position where the receivers could catch it. And I think it always helps a quarterback to have a really solid running game. I think we rushed the ball a little bit better. Yesterday we got to the second level a little bit more than we have all year long. So we're coming along. We still got a ways to go to just have that consistency with our running game to help the quarterback.
And the receivers didn't have their best day. 3-4 drops now. Clifford's under siege, so not every pass was perfect. But I don't think that's the reason they lost. I think he's a really gutsy player and has given everything. I mean, just the beating he's taken this year. Really, have we seen a quarterback get banged around so much and keep coming back? It's been really impressive. But the receivers, I think they just have to. Lambert Smith had a couple drops. Lovett had a couple drops, uncatchable balls. It just wasn't their best day.
Yeah, and I'm not sure the coaching staff did the offense many favors late in that game. You have the turnover, you're unable to punch the ball in, then you get the ball back, and I'm not sure what was going on. All I know is that Cam Sullivan-Brown has 4 catches on the season. Good guy, great team player, but he ended up being targeted on 3 of their last 5 plays, which to me is head scratching. Now I know Dotson was not in there, he got banged up and they couldn't bring him back in apparently by rule for the last 4th down play, but for that last 4th down play to just be fired down the field when you need 2 yards, I mean, I think everybody in the stadium was scratching their heads over what happened there. So yeah, Neil, I don't think Clifford was the reason they lost that game by a long shot. I think the offensive coaching, from my view, had as much to do with it as anything.
And I don't think they should have punted in that situation, 4th and 2. But if they were going to do what they did, maybe they should have. They still were sitting on 3 timeouts. Right. And maybe their defense pinned Michigan in, but you just don't know. Michigan was so strong running the ball that
you don't do what they did, I guess
right.
Is what I'm getting at. And I don't know, while you've been back there, so is that just the bang bang thing where, how does he end up throwing it down the field? Was nothing else there? What happens there?
Depending on what the play call was, he was one-on-one out there. Safety wasn't close to him. So he had that whole side of the field to work with. So that might be where his read took him. But, I think one of the key plays was, we got the momentum and recovered the ball on our side of the field, and we kicked the field goal instead of scoring a touchdown. Mm-hmm. Michigan made some adjustments and saw that we were playing the aggressive man coverage sometimes didn't have the safety in the middle of the field, and they ran those crossing routes to really and our guys bumped into each other and the umpire, and he was already in a trail position, and that's what opened up that play.
One thing I will say about the guy who got bumped was Kalen King, a true freshman.
Right.
And he was out there because I think Castro Fields was bumped up. But to me, that speaks more to this defense has zero margin for error. You know, you're going to give up a play like that now and then. Now, I'm not defending it. I mean, it was a tough play. I think if you have veteran players in there, they may be more apt to be able to handle the crossing action. But when it's a true freshman, I think it's a little bit more understandable. But I do think it speaks to that defense has played well most of the season and is left with zero margin for error because the offense just isn't scoring the number of points it needs to.
Yeah, they've also been victimized by some late key drives. Maybe because they're out of the gas. Or what bothered me is when they get the great play by Ebiketie and they get a turnover at the 16-yard line and settle for the field goal.
Got to get 6.
At that point, Lee ran for 75 yards in the second half, and they did not go to the run. I know they tried Clifford once, but again, you know, and there were some situations. Hey, they were on Michigan's side of the field 6 times and then 1 touchdown.
Yeah, I'm also curious, you know, James Franklin said after the game, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's like the one guy we have who's making explosive plays is Dotson. And I mean, isn't that on the coaching staff too? I mean, it's not as if they don't have athletic guys. We see what these guys have run in their 40-yard dashes at camp. At camps, at some point, you have to be able to develop some other guys. You can't have just one explosive player while you were on teams that had 10 explosive players. But you have to be able to develop more than just one guy. And while with you guys, hey, if it wasn't Ingram, you know, Joe Juravicius was stepping up. There were guys who weren't necessarily in the same classes who were getting it done.
Right. And I think that's important. That's, you know, why you recruit. And we've got a lot of great athletes on our team, and I think they just have to really get the confidence to go out there when it's their time to put up and make the plays that are put before them, because they're going to be in some positions to make plays, and I think that's important for them, and the coaches have to make sure that they harp on them to make sure when you get your opportunity, make the most of it, because you only get so many.
They were a little better in short yardage yesterday. They ran a 3rd and 4 with Lee right up the middle in the second half, and he got it. I mean, it was like a little stunning. But when they went to their jumbo set earlier this year with the tight ends, you know, they seemed like they were having a little bit more success in the short yardage. They seemed to go away from it now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that helped him with the running game in the most recent game was the fact that Clifford was able to do more things with his legs. I mean, they had six runs of 10 yards or more, and Clifford had 3 of them. I mean, Lee had 2 and Lovett had 1.
Yeah,
so,
Sean finished with 16 yards. We've had more, but sacked.
Well, yeah, exactly. If you take away the sacks, which you would in the NFL, he had 60-some yards rushing. So that is really helpful. I just don't know that you could expect him to do that every game with the beating that he's taking.
And Michigan's defense was great. I mean, those defensive ends,
they're tough.
Let's give credit. I mean, you know, they had, you know, between the 2 of them, they had 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. That's going to win you some games.
If you're Sean and you're facing that Michigan defense, what stood out yesterday about it that made them, you know, pretty locked down?
Well, I think as a quarterback, you want to have good pass protection. The run game, an effective run game, always helps you just keep guys honest where they can't just pin their ears back and come at you. But I think, you know, at some points of the game, we did a good job in containing those 2, but sometimes they got in some one-on-one situations where they're able to get around some of our offensive linemen and get some hits on Sean and cause some fumbles. And that happens. And you know, it's hard to overcome that when you have 7 sacks in a game. That's tough, you know, losing all of that yardage. That really has a detrimental effect on the offense.
Well, you would need both hands to count the number of 1st or 2nd round draft picks who played in front of you, wouldn't you? Seriously.
Yeah.
It's this offensive line. I feel like we've talked about it every single week. I mean, at this point in the season, what is the problem? What is the disconnect? Is it as big of a deal as we maybe think it is, or is it something that is just a foundation that needs to be addressed every week?
You know what stood out to me about the offensive line that was the most troubling, and I wrote about it, was early in the game, Clifford was sacked, and it looked like the left side was beaten. And Miranda turns around toward them, and he's like, you don't do that out on the field. You know, that to me is this is a veteran guy. That to me is speaking to, okay, it's one thing if you're struggling. It's another thing when you have visible shows of frustration. And I kind of get it with Miranda, but you have to be better than that. And that's telling me that maybe the leadership isn't there that they need. You cannot have a veteran player turning around after two guys struggle and throwing your hands up in frustration. I just think it's a bad sign, and I think it's a sign that the leadership is not as strong there as it needs to be.
Well, he went out in the second half, and their run blocking actually was a little better.
He was banged up. We hope he's okay.
that.
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, he was hurt, and we hope that he's okay.
Right.
But early in the game, I thought that was a situation where you just can't have that.
All right, and when we come back after a quick break, we'll go over some more positives. Kevon Lee and the tight ends, especially sticking out this week.
The NitWits are being brought to you by RE/MAX Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
So Kevon Lee, pretty good game yesterday. What stood out about his performance real quick?
Yeah, I think he's kind of established himself as the running back. I think they ought to give him the opportunity. I mean, he had 20 carries. I think he deserves to be the featured guy. Just ran hard, ran tough, did not do much of that East and West stuff we saw earlier in the season.
And Neil, any thoughts about general performance from Lee?
Well, I thought he was real good. One real quick point is, you know, we're sitting there, and if they score, you realize they're going to have to go for two, which, based on what happened in Illinois, I liked how decisive they were. They jumped right into it. They got their ball to the best player, and Clifford made a great pass to tie the game.
Okay,
That's the good stuff from the game.
And we'll be right back after a quick break with our predictions for next week.
The NitWits are being brought to you by NovaCare, Altoona and State College. We proudly support Penn State football. By Quattrini Rafferty, attorneys at law. Michael Rooch, peace of mind after an injury or illness. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
All right, here are a look at the Nitwit of the week, and unfortunately it was the deflated ball, so we all kind of weren't great at picking this week.
Yeah.
But
He's having a good year.
yeah, let's go first with the Rutgers predictions for next week.
Yeah, I'll go first. I mean, listen, earlier in the year, I would have called this game as a blowout, and I still think it could go that way, but who knows which way it's going to go after what we saw. I think the deciding factor here, as goofy as this may sound, is that it's senior day, and you have some guys who have probably played their last game in a Dotson and a Mustapher and maybe even a Sean Clifford, who have meant a very lot to the program, helped get them through a tough time last year. So I think they bring it together, play well. Look for Penn State to win it 26-14.
Okay, and I think they're going to win 34-13. I totally agree. The senior night emotional aspect is huge as well. Wally and Neil, who wants to go next?
Go ahead, Wally.
I'll say, the guys should be motivated. It's a lot of guys last game in the blue and white at Penn State in Beaver Stadium, so I'm going to say the Lions win 28-17.
Yeah, I'm going to say they just have not shown the ability to really score a lot. I'm going to say Penn State 27-21. Rutgers always plays really hard. They had a great win at Indiana. I don't know what's going on in Indiana, but Schiano there, big game for Rutgers, and Penn State's going to have to regroup. A lot of times after tough losses, Penn State has not responded real well very quickly, so we'll see.
Wally, what's the emotion of senior night like? Just quick. I know that's a loaded question, but generally what does that mean?
It brings the culmination to 3 or 4, 5 years sometimes of what you've done at Penn State, going through all the practices, classes, everything is kind of just all in a nutshell, and you want to make sure your last performance there is one that people really remember you by for the right reasons.
All right, thanks so much. We will see you back here next week.
The NitWits are being brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Salaney Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Kogan Electric, lighting the way for you. By NovaCare, Altoona and State College, we proudly support Penn State football. By Quattrini Rafferty, Attorneys at Law, Michael Rooch, peace of mind after an injury or illness. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.